Hello, I'm Geoffrey Colby from the Campaign for a Scottish Borders National Park. In this introductory video, Roger Curtis of Historic Environment Scotland, who is one of our 12 Towers team, will give some historic background to Bedrule Castle in the Rule Valley near Jedburgh. Today it is not much more than a grassy mound, but 600 years ago it was a powerful and important castle. The castle was built on the edge of a steep bank which drops quickly to the Rule water below, and today the site is divided by a field boundary. In the field, the site has all but been obliterated by centuries of agriculture, but if you look carefully at this aerial photograph you can just see the line of the original curtain wall, showing the rectangular aspect of the structure. The Campaign for a Scottish Borders National Park has obtained a Build Back Better Borders grant from Scottish Borders Council to do some exploratory excavation on the site, so we can learn more about how the castle was built and its relationship to the surrounding settlement at that time. This investigation is overseen by a team from Archaeology Scotland. Now, on a very windy day, Roger Curtis tells us more about the site.
The site of Bedrule Castle, sitting on a very steep bank above the river here. You can detect just behind me some banks and wall fragments, which is the remains of the castle. The site has been cut in half, really. The wall separates the remains that we're going to look at closer in a minute from the rest of the building and the establishment that is now basically lost to the arable activity. This is probably an older site than Fulton, probably dating from the 13th century and possibly part of the Anglo-Norman settlement of southern Scotland under King David I. It is believed this was a royal castle, had quite some distinguished visitors, including Edward II. And with Archaeology Scotland, the Towers of Rule project hoped to do some basic planning of the site, identifying wall footings and areas, and then picking up on a bit of survey work in the field where we can just see indications of possibly a ditch and maybe a bank that showed up during an aerial survey summer of last year, which is really interesting. There is a record on Canmore already, so there is something to see in terms of plans. We'd like to develop that a little bit further and possibly understand how the settlement fits in to the wider context. Just in front of me there, 100 yards away, is Bedrule Church, which is a very early church, or a site of an early church. The present building is not especially old now, but we'd like to try and join up some of these areas of the settlement, maybe even get a feeling for where the medieval village was, which was probably, I'd guess, in the field off to my left. So when the wind lets me, we'll break for a minute and we'll go and have a closer look at the site itself. So we're now within the enclosed area of Bedrule Castle. As I indicated, it's a series of grass-covered mounds, probably the remains of the wall and the wall core from when the masonry was taken away to build other things. Bedrule farmhouse, steadings, all the dry stone dikes you can see around. As I indicated, this was a big, by the standards of this parts of Scotland, a good-sized castle. Perhaps rectangular in overall plan with rounded corners. We're in the half that still exists, and then the other half to a third is off to my left, the other side of the dry stone dike. This raised area here, just to my left here, it is suggested that that's the footings of the main tower, and then off round the perimeter, over the very steep edge off to my right, would be the encircling wall. And the word for this type of castle of this period of the 13th century would be encente, where you have a curtain wall with possibly quite small towers and a gatehouse around it, and then a larger main tower where you had your secure accommodation, in addition to stabling, storage facilities, and all the other functions that would have to happen. As I mentioned earlier, this might have been associated with the Royal Forest of Jed Forest. This castle was built by the Commons, and until they fell out with King Robert, this was their place for a long time. We know the Turnbulls rose in ascendancy in Rule Water, probably from the 14th century onwards, and actually Bedrule Castle is really associated with the Turnbull name and the clan, and certainly they've been quite busy in coming here and supporting the work as we take this forward. We know that from records by the 16th century, it is possible that this site was in decline. The reports of it being in ruins by 1620. So I suspect this has had quite a long decline, and now you're really just seeing banks of suggestions of where the walls and the footings were. But what we hope to establish in this project is perhaps clarifying some of these foundations, maybe using some non-invasive survey techniques, and indeed work in the field to establish the ditch and the banking that can be seen from the aerial photography.